I want to take a second to introduce Stanley. I think, if anybody's ever done any photography work in the Southeast, you've probably worked alongside Stanley, or you've at least heard of him. Stanley's a really gifted storyteller, and he works with a lot of well-known companies and organizations like Chick-fil-A. He also knows the value and the importance of having a well-organized and easily searchable library. And so that's what Stanley's here today to share some excellent tips with us. And I'm excited to hear it because I feel like every time I talk to Stanley, I learn something. So, so Stanley, teach us, show us.
Well, thank you. I was trying to, there we go, share my screen. Let me go to my PowerPoint there. Give me 1 second. And good. You guys can see what I'm getting right here to present to you guys. Cool. So what I want to start with is something that I think is important, is that when we first implemented Chick-fil-A, when I first got there and implemented PhotoShelter, I was doing what every journalist does, write captions and all that. And that's how we were searching for the pictures. It just took a little while before we found out that it was a total flop. The reason it's a flop is majority of the people within Chick-fil-A were not thinking of pulling pictures for the same reasons that journalists think. So what we were needing was to really embrace the keyword fields that we weren't using. And so that became very important. But before I go into this and tell you a little bit more about that, because that's really what I'll address today, is the turning point for Chick-fil-A using PhotoShelter more effectively, especially for you guys who are out there doing journalistic type things and taking pictures and writing normal captions. If you put keywords in, the organizations can use them for a lot more things than just the initial concept of what you shot it for. So if you think of it like moving your photos beyond the initial assignment and using them for a lot more things for your organizations. Now, I've been doing a lot of work for a lot of different organizations other than just Chick-fil-A. And I've even gone to ABWE and helped them spend a week in August helping them set up their digital asset management. And some of the things we even did was we just put a picture up on the screen, and I'll do that in a second and show you some ideas of what kind of keywords can you come up with. So I'll ask you guys to type in a keyword and see how that works a little later. So be ready for that. The thing that's interesting is that growth-oriented brands understand the customer's eyes because they know their customers want to judge them based on what they see. And the sight is the most important human sense for evaluating brands and even making a purchase. What's interesting is most people don't even know, as writers especially forget, is you have to actually learn how to take the visual, the text, and translate that and learn how to read it. So your eyes are still working as visual recognition. So looking at this and going forward, one of the things that's interesting and what I want to address today is the way Toyota works is they go from the bottom up, and that bottom up thinking is a lot different than a lot of times when people who are making decisions in organizations are thinking top down. We want a photo, we want to find our photos. Well, it doesn't take long, as I found out when we implemented it at Chick-fil-A and other places. It's if the user cannot find the photos they're looking for, it's not a very successful system. So I just want to give you guys two photos. I want you to write down in the chat on the left photo and the right photo a keyword that you would use to describe these, and go ahead and put those up. And then after you put yours up, look at what everybody else is putting up. And I think that's interesting. I'm going to just go look over in chat real quick and see what that looks like for a second for me. And I want you guys to do your best to put some keywords up that you think would describe these. And the main thing you're going to find is any organization I do this with, when you sit around in tables, everybody puts up different keywords. And when they start sharing them, they immediately find out not everybody's using the same keywords. Thus, this is the problem why things are not findable in organizations. So you need to learn how to basically create a keyword list that's structured for your organization and not just in general keywords. So what we're doing is sifting the wheat from the chaff in this process, because people want to be able to go in and basically click and go, I need this type of photo. And within Chick-fil-A, I may have shot a grand opening, but somebody else needs that for architecture, for a design project. They're put in their PowerPoint. Or Dan Cathy's going to go speak to an organization. He wants to show the latest thing they've done. So those are why keywords are so important. They want to find these things for other reasoning. So I may have grand opening on there, or I may have a new design, some other keywords. So while there are a lot of keywords that you can put in, which is one of the things that you can find, description, caption, there's a lot more information as for those of who do photos. Now video, if you do your own video embedding of captions information before you upload, that's not standardized. You can do it within PhotoShelter a lot more effectively, is what I'm saying. But anyway, with these keywords, the main thing that I want you to realize, and we were just talking about this when Brad shared about his photographers shooting from all over the world, primarily on phones. Well, just if everybody turns on their GPS, and I use Photo Mechanic, and then I have it go through and take the GPS coordinates and put in the city, town, and state. And so in this photo here of my friends who are in Honduras taking pictures, the Kathy family is actually, they take their grandkids and do volunteer work. And so this shows exactly where the photo was taken. So the thing is, a lot of people have the captions like this that happen. So if you're shooting like the Boston Red Sox game, you may have the player's name and all that, but the other information of in other organizations, especially at Chick-fil-A, people are looking for drive-through. They're looking for other words that are a little bit more specific to them. So kind of going into this, and this sounds like I'm getting into the weeds. What I'm really saying is I want you guys to understand, if you're only thinking about the way you just want to put your content up and share it for yours, you're thinking about the message and forgetting about the audience. You really want to start with who's using the system and make it where it's more usable for them. And that's where your keywords come in. Custom keywords work the best. Now you can go buy the list that like Getty uses and try to use that, but that's millions of keywords. It's just incredible large list. If you do your own custom words associated to your organization, it makes a lot more sense to do that. And actually it's easier to do, because then you're just keywording a few things for the ways people are looking for things. And these are some keywords that Chick-fil-A uses. It's very similar to any other organization. You just need to come up with your own. So these custom keywords, you need to be sure everyone that's embedding the keywords is using the exact same keywords. This is a major problem that most organizations start out and they go, oh, we got PhotoShelter. Let's just start putting keywords in. Person puts in girl, another person puts in woman, another person puts in lady, another puts in child. All those would probably describe sometimes a person, but the thing is, you need to go from the same set of keywords, create that list, share it with all the people who are embedding that information into your photos. Either you can do it on PhotoShelter or another program, Lightroom, whatever, and then upload. I also use Lightroom and use the face recognition for most of my stuff to put that in, as well as the keywords themselves. Start with big buckets for your organizations. You know, you're basically thinking a main point and that's subpoints. And the way this works is when you get down here to the like the fourth or fifth point in and you click on it, all the other, let me back up, all these things up above this will actually go where you can see them. So the next thing is, this is like a Chick-fil-A's taxonomy part of it. You can see that I've got restaurants exterior, exterior property. But the way I did this was in a spreadsheet within Excel. It saved it as a text and then brought it into this software that I use primarily for keywording, which is Camera Bits' Photo Mechanic. And you can just go there and find out more about it. The advantage of this is then I can use this keyword list like this, type in a keyword up here, it'll pop up in this long list. I don't have to remember the whole list. Then when I apply it, it applies all these words all the way over. And if you put things in brackets, those would be like synonyms. So I'll create synonym list. And that's an example of your organization changes the name of something and you want to do something a little different. So that's my recommendations. Do these keyword lists. Now, kind of, that's just all I'm going to say about keywords. One of the other things that's important to note is that the importance of you're not just taking pictures for use today and tomorrow of what you did today and it's going to be used tomorrow. You're also taking pictures that are going to be archival for the institution long term. So when somebody gets ready to go back and looks for photos, an example is if some of you went on Facebook in the last week or two, you may have been seeing Nebraska using old photos from like 50, 60 years ago, polio, people standing in line to talk about vaccination today. That's a good example, but how do you get those photos? You got to be able to find them. Well, Wayne Clough, who I worked with at Georgia Tech when I was on staff, he went on to become the Secretary of Smithsonian. So he was the curator for United States' archives. And he says that a good photo library speaks to integrity of the institution. So he came back after he retired from doing the Smithsonian and said, I think I'll write a little book about some of the stuff I was doing when I was at Georgia Tech during his time. So he started to look for photos, and guess what? Poof, they were all gone, only 13 images. Well, what had happened is after I had left, I digitized it, the backup system got all screwed up. And so they lost all those images digitally, and they didn't have backups that were very good. PhotoShelter is a lot better for that. You don't have this problem. But the other thing is the original photos were actually stored in the basement, and they had a flood, and they lost them all that way. So here's some suggestions that are kind of recommendations from that. Keep your images in 3 places: your computer, an external hard drive, or a server, and then on PhotoShelter. And PhotoShelter probably has at least 3 backups for your stuff anyway, but I think you should have 2 others in addition to that, in my opinion. The other thing I want to talk to you about is how important it is for an organization, especially as an individual photographer. I use this all the time, as well as some places within Chick-fil-A. So you can put the picture up at the highest resolution, get the best possible image you can up there. People, as you know, can download the lower resolutions. They also have a vendor service that you can pick somebody who can order fulfill and do the prints. They can do it on keychains. They can do anything, t-shirts. You can just select this and add that to your site, and then people can click, and instead of departments coming to you and saying, hey, can you get me a print of, you don't have to deal with that anymore. It's all there. Just click and they can order their prints. Then for those of you who want to become the agencies, you can go ahead and make it where you can sell and license these, and they use PhotoQuote to do this. I do this all the time. I manage one of my friends' systems for that. So that's the main things that how we're using the PhotoShelter. Is one of the mistakes I first made, and I want to go back to that again because it's very important, is that just putting your caption information. So example, when I was shooting sports, and I still do that for Chick-fil-A and shoot the Peach Bowl, I may have who's in the photos, everything just like the people are doing at the Red Sox. But the other thing I go back for is then I put in the I put in more keywords for things that people are looking for. So nobody else is interested in who did the coin toss, but often that's the CEO and Dan Cathy. So I may be sure I have coin toss in another section, and it may be in the caption as well, but I'm going to be sure it's in the keywords. So one thing I've noticed through this time is there's 2 ways you can learn to do things, and one of the best ways to learn, in which where you gain a lot of wisdom, is basically accumulated scar tissue. You make mistakes, learn, and from that, you learn and go, okay, don't do that again. That's kind of Elon Musk's mode of operating, why he was able to do things NASA wasn't doing, because NASA was trying to avoid making mistakes. Embrace mistakes, make them, and learn from them. The other way you can learn, though, is hire somebody or go take a class from somebody who's already made those mistakes. That's what colleges are for, and that's what workshops are for. And so I do a lot of workshops and lead organizations on how to go through exactly what I've done and learned, so you don't make the mistakes I did, and you can piggyback off of my experience. And if you want to contact me, you can do that here. So I'm going to stop there and open this up for questions.
Stanley, that's great. That's so great. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I get asked a lot when we're helping people get set up, and they say, well, can you have too many keywords? I know I always say no. I think you should have a lot of keywords, but what is your take on that? Do you think there's a point where you just have too many keywords? Are you trying to keep it within a certain range?
Well, usually this is funny because Peter Krug, who works with PhotoShelter, wrote the damn book, and I recommend anybody who needs to read that if you're setting up a system. Well, first of all, to answer your question is probably no, there's no way you can put too many keywords, but probably 10 to 15 is probably sufficient. But the problem is how many keywords, it's how long it takes to put them in. So if you're in a small organization like Chick-fil-A, the people that are looking for those photos are Chick-fil-A, and they're a motivated searcher. They're somebody who's going to look for, they're going to take a few more minutes, but they're also not going to pull up in the Chick-fil-A PhotoShelter account. It is not going to have the number of photos that say Getty has. And so because of that, I would say that, somebody pulls up drive-through, they may end up with a few hundred photos. That's easy to go through versus a keyword search for man on Getty. You're going to end up with, millions. So hopefully that answers your question. But the custom keyword list will help your organization find things much faster, because most people talk in jargon within organizations, acronyms. If you're at IBM, that's just required to speak in acronyms. So all organizations have them, and it's always good to use that as your keyword so your organization, people can find them.
How often do you find yourself going back to revise a keyword list? Like, as a reference might change, in the company to, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like maybe you used to call an event something, but now they call it something else. How often do you find yourself having to go back and make those adjustments, add additional keywords?
Not that often, but one of the best things that PhotoShelter offers is Google Analytics for you to bury that within your in the site. If you're not doing that, you're missing an opportunity, because the advantage of Google Analytics, I can go back to all the way to 2006, and I can pull up all the search terms that everybody has searched for within Chick-fil-A's PhotoShelter account. So the best way to massage your keyword list is actually look at how people are searching in your catalog, and that's the best way to do things. You also every once in a while just want to kind of go to your users. You want this to be user friendly. So don't look at this as how much work it's creating for you, as much as how much it's making you of value to the organization where they want you around a lot longer. So
Absolutely.
the best thing you can do is go find out what they're searching for, and then add those keywords, and then also let them know what keywords are in there, so that they're not going PhotoShelter, and same thing works with Getty and others. There aren't that many things that have like Google that's going to put in all the options. If you don't put in the right word, you won't get it back unless you create all the alternative spellings yourself in your keyword list. So you want to train your users on what words are available to search for.
Absolutely. We had somebody had asked what was the book that you had referred to, Peter's book that you were talking about, I think.
It's called the DAM Handbook, Peter Krog's book. Just look for Peter Krog and digital asset management, and it's the Bible for the industry. And he walks you through everything from keywords, why you want a custom keyword list. This is not new to me, but it was new to me when I made all the mistakes at Chick-fil-A and didn't have the list, and realized, the thing that was interesting is I put up pictures, and I can go to my system and look at any day, and the downloads are in the thousands usually, and sometimes it's 3,000 or 4,000, sometimes down to 600. But what we're finding is people are using this for PowerPoint presentations, in meetings all the time. They want to show something. And most everything I was doing was for internal use, but the reason Chick-fil-A is where it is today is because we train the people inside to know how to better serve the customer. With, everybody in that organization understands that if they're not selling chicken, they better be supporting someone who is.
Right. Makes sense. Looking to see, we've had a few comments where huge props for the Chick-fil-A billboards. People love the Chick-fil-A billboards. Great work, Stanley. Somebody else said keywords are the hot sauce of content. They make everything better, so, which is cute. I think one thing that struck me when you were talking about the detail of the keywords is that it's, you're a storyteller, Stanley, and you're keywording the same way you shoot, right? You go into an event to photograph the event, but you're also looking for what else can I make at this event for future use. Looking for detail shots, things like that. So your keywording is it's just falling into that same line, right? I mean, you're going in and pulling those little details out, like you said, that aren't necessarily relevant to the overall project, but are going to give you that long-term use, right?
Well, that's the thing that most people, if you start in your early career, you're just figuring out how to expose a picture and get it correct. Then you learn how to do, wide, medium shots, close-ups. And a good chunk of photographers never evolved beyond that. They learn how to take the basic story pictures. They're not really thinking from the client perspective and user. So when you really think from the user perspective, when I go to a Chick-fil-A game, I'm sitting there while everybody on the sidelines is shooting for, either they're shooting on spec, the football games, for example, and they're hoping to get a sell. They're just looking for the action and stuff like that. And then there are other guys who are being paid to be there, $300 to $500, and there are others being paid literally thousands of dollars to stand there. Well, they know how to not only get the picture of the game, but they know where they need to stand so that the logo of the brand is behind them. So Nike looks good, or Under Armour, or whatever. Those guys are getting the most money shooting the stuff because they're aware of the what people are searching for and how they'll use the photos beyond just the play and action. And I think that's one thing that's missing is you need to bring people into understanding what your PhotoShelter, how it's being used. The editors need to bring this back to the content creators and saying, hey, when you're out there shooting, here's things that people are looking for. When I was shooting for the International Mission Board and travel the world, traveling and doing pictures, I used to have our photo library staff would sit down with me before the trips and they'd say, here's some things you may not even think about. When you're getting ready to take a picture while you're doing the story, we're looking for a picture of, just take a plate of the food that you have in front of you. Kids want to know what kind of food you eat. And so they create content for kids magazines later. And I was over there shooting this guy digging a well, and somebody's telling me, just take a picture of your food. Well, that takes 2 seconds to do, and it's not a glorious photo, but it's amazing how people want to see what that's like, or how the kids, what do they play when they're playing in different countries? What are the toys they use? And these are things that, I'm doing the regular story, and then I see something, now I'm doing that. And I got all this growth came from photo librarian people who trained me to look beyond the obvious and beyond the storyline, but to learn to add value. So the reason I'm shooting for Chick-fil-A and the other companies that I work for isn't because I know how to well expose new graphics and new lighting. It's because I know what their customers need, because I'm listening to the customer, which is how you do that from getting Google Analytics for what they search for.
Exactly. Oh, that's really well said. Very well tied in. We had somebody ask how your keyword habits translate into the social media hashtag world. Are you thinking social media hashtags at all when you're doing any kind of keywording?
For myself personally, I do, and for some of my clients, not for Chick-fil-A particularly, because the social media hashtag, when you're, I would say that that's another way somebody else can use keywording though and help that organization. So if you are one of the main clients speaking, say, for whatever organization, then maybe you want to be sure the keywords match that. But the downside, you want to be, if it helps narrow your search is what you want to use them for. Keywording is about, you've seen the car commercial where they show the Carfax and let's go, I'm looking for a car that has only so many miles. You've seen that commercial, or and it just narrows a search. Keywording is supposed to do, not expand it. But at the same time, if you'll notice, those commercials never get you down to one car, they get you to a selection. And keywords should do the same thing. If you're getting down to one photo, that's more of a caption. But if you're keywording, I should see a variety of pictures in that.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. We had a viewer ask, do you ever retire images in an effort not to muddy up keywords that get used year after year? Or would you just include the year, et cetera, when searching for images?
There's a danger, again, going back to Wayne Clough's Smithsonian. If you retire the images, how will you find them when you're trying to do a retrospective? Or when I got hired into ABW this past summer, they're getting ready to celebrate their 100th anniversary and they need photos. Well, they have over, I think around 500,000 images they're trying to catalog right now. And they need to find them. Well, the reason they're now trying to fix their system, they've had a PhotoShelter since 2006, they never did keywording right either. So they're just starting this summer and created their custom lists to know how they should be tagging it, because they were just writing in words as they typed in, and whoever did it, and there was no master list that was shared that everybody used, and so they had to start over. So yeah, it's important. The whole point is making this stuff more usable. PhotoShelter becomes like another employee to a staff, and like a huge department, if you do it right, that everybody can access at any point around the whole world. Nobody has to use the old FileMaker Pro and go sit at somebody's desk and they'll bring up the pictures so you can find them. That's what it was when I started in 2008 at Chick-fil-A. That's how they did it. A lady was there just 2 days a week. You go sit at her desk and you pull pictures. Well, their artists were all over the country and they couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Just how things have evolved from, you know, the days of film and we're sleeving negatives and slides and things like that and having to look through the filing cabinet to find things, to now you have just that ability for people around the world to search a keyword and have instant access to the images. It's crazy.
Well, the one thing that's in the dovetail on that is most people think of, they create folders and they put all this stuff and then they do file naming so you can find it by the file name. And even Peter says this, we've evolved past that. If you're still using the file name to find photos and putting things in folders, you are not using PhotoShelter nor your computer to its effectiveness. You're basically like somebody doesn't know how to empty the trash can on your computer. That's old school. You need to learn how to use all the fields and effectively. So like if you use the GPS and you're taking pictures and you can make your camera talk and do that, which I do with my Nikons, the GPS tags them, then you can immediately exactly where you were standing taking the picture. That's now searchable. It's searchable by the date and time I did it. You can sort that way. If you just do just a few things and you just take your phone and take a picture, it's already now searchable by date, time, and GPS coordinates, city, town, state. That's amazing when you really think about it. And you didn't even add anything, and it's already searchable.